All right, everybody. We've got 6:31, so I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Common Council to order. We're going to start with roll call.
Seth,
Here.
Andrew,
Here.
Todd Kirking,
Here.
Emma,
Here.
Todd Spaeth will not be here. Cindy,
Here.
John,
Here.
Crystal,
Here.
Steve,
Here.
and Justin.
Here. Pledge of Allegiance. Gotta turn that on. Item number 2 is approval of the May 27th, 2025 regular council minutes.
This is Crystal. I would move approval of those minutes without additions or corrections.
Todd, I'll second it.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Item number 3, council announcements. Any member of the council have anything they would like to announce?
Hey, this is Emma, and I'm just going to announce that Rocco Community Theater has a play. It runs from next weekend, starting Thursday through Sunday, and it's called Masha and the Firebird, and it's a children's play. And my 12-year-old is in the role of Masha, so just also plugging that.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Also tomorrow at 4 o'clock in this room, there is a meeting regarding the playground at Ecker Park. We welcome the public to come, and we're going to kind of present what we have going forward. So please show up 4 o'clock to 5 tomorrow right here.
Great. Anybody else? No? All right, we'll move on to item number 4, which is the first period for public comment. So if there's any members of the public here to speak, now would be the time. Please use that microphone, say your name, address, and we keep comments to about 3 minutes. Nobody in house here? Is there anybody online that wish to make a public comment?
I think you're good, Mayor.
Hearing none, we will move on to item number 5, which is the presentation of the Kickapoo Valley Dark Sky Initiative.
Hello, I'm Carol Wesley, and I'm a resident of Rocco, Wisconsin. And I'm a member of the Kickapoo Valley Dark Sky Initiative. With me is Scott Lind, and Scott, I'm going to read his credentials because they're quite impressive, is a Wisconsin licensed professional electrical engineer and master electrician who too is a member of the Kickapoo Valley Dark Sky Initiative. The Kickapoo Valley Dark Sky Initiative is a local nonprofit whose mission is to promote dark skies in the Kickapoo Valley. As you are aware, our dark skies have always been one of our big values that we've all held, and certainly have developed a reputation within Wisconsin for them. Unfortunately, our dark skies have been slipping away, and we are concerned about that. Tonight, we'd like to provide you some information, not about the value of dark skies, but about the technology that currently is available that we would like to provide some information to you that may help you in making future decisions about dark skies here in our area.
Thank you for the chance to speak to you this evening. Here's a startling fact. A child born today, when they turn 18, will only be able to see about 40% of the stars they can see right now. And that's because worldwide, light pollution is increasing about 10% every year and has for the last decade. And locally, it's even worse than that. The Kickapoo Valley Dark Sky Park Initiative, when we started in 2021, the skies above Wildcat Mountain State Park and the Kickapoo Valley Reserve were dark enough to qualify for that status. And in a 30-month period, they got 57% brighter. It's really an amazing number. But we know why. It's because of the adoption of very blue LEDs replacing mostly high-pressure sodium fixtures. So lights that have a lot of blue spectrum in them, lights that are generally speaking unshielded. They produce a lot of glare and a lot of direct uplight. And for the most part, are much, much brighter than they need to be to perform the task. Much brighter than the fixtures that were there before they were put in. And so that's the reasons why we've seen that tremendously large increase here. So we're here tonight to really encourage the city of Viroqua to follow the lead of Lafarge and Ontario and Wilton in looking at a different way to do lighting in the city. And hopefully by doing that, encourage other leaders in the community to do the same thing. So you might, if you go out to the, yes, sorry. If you don't care about stars and you don't care about dark skies, there's many other reasons why you care about excess artificial light at night. And I'm not a biologist, but there's lots of research out there talking about the impact to wildlife and human health. It's obvious that if you have excess light at night, you're wasting energy. And for the most part, in fact, almost exclusively, that light you see at night is generated not by sustainable sources, right? We aren't storing that energy from solar and using it at night. For the most part, it's coming from carbon-based sources. So it contributes directly to climate change. The next one you're probably going to be surprised by, personal safety, how excess light decreases your personal safety. And I'm going to have a slide on that in just a minute. And then the final thing is really our night sky heritage, which is kind of where the dark sky movement started many, many years ago. Go to the next slide, if you would. So this is kind of the poster child for how not to do outdoor lighting. It's obvious probably to everyone here that those lights are very bright. It may not be obvious how blue they are. Those are 5,000 Kelvin color temperature lights. They've got a lot of blue spectrum, so they produce a lot of glare and a lot of sky glow. And they have a lot of uplight because of the fact they're not shielded. But you know, if you look around at night, we see a lot of this. This is not the exception. In many cases, it's almost the rule. And so we're here to talk about how to do that differently tonight. So I don't expect you to look at this chart and be able to really appreciate it tonight, but the key thing to understand is that color temperature of light, which is what that second column is, the 1900K number to 5000K number, that's strictly the color of the light. It has nothing to do with the amount of light, just the color of the light and how much of an impact that has on sky glow. And so in the Kickapoo Valley Reserve and at several locations in Lafarge, Wilton, and Ontario, I've been installing, and Wayne Haugard and Lafarge has been installing 1800 Kelvin, the lowest number you see in that chart, 1800 Kelvin fixtures, which are very gold, very, very warm. I'm not coming tonight to ask Viroqua to consider 1800K. We're using those because they're very close to the Dark Sky Park location. But 2200 Kelvin, which is the next number for LEDs in that fixture, is white light. It's defined by the standards as white light, and it has a much better performance for the sky brightness than the 4000 Kelvin, which is most typically used. So I want to encourage you to consider if you change a fixture from 4000 Kelvin to 2200 Kelvin, or if you choose a 2200 Kelvin instead of a 4000 Kelvin and do nothing else, keep the light the same, don't add any shielding, you'll decrease sky brightness by 44%. Just doing that one thing. You take a fixture that has just 10% uplight and give it 0% uplight, you'll decrease sky brightness by 46%. If you do both those things, you decrease sky brightness by 67%. That has zero impact on how much light you get in the ground. No impact whatsoever in the amount of light in the ground. Just do those two simple things. You can go to the next one. So here's I talked about personal safety. The gentleman at the gate in the bottom is also present at the gate in the top, but because of the glare and the excess contrast caused by that wall-mounted fixture without a shield on it, the camera doesn't see him. And if you were standing there, you wouldn't see him either. So we need a certain amount of light to be able to be safe at night, to be able to navigate safely, but too much light is actually less safe. You get that too much contrast, you can't see anything except what's right in that pool of light. All right. So in conclusion, really what we're looking to ask Viroqua to consider doing is to follow the 5 principles for better lighting. First principle has no name on here, but it's put a light only where it's needed. Don't install a light at all if you don't need it. And when you do install it, shield it so the light is focused downward. Use a warmer color temperature for the reasons I mentioned earlier in terms of sky glow and glare. Put only the intensity you need. You look around, you see many, many places where we get far more light than we need. And I do a lot of calculations for that. And all the retrofits I've done, we've reduced the amount of light coming out of there by a huge amount, 75, 80% in many cases, saved that amount of energy, and we still have the IES standard amount of light needed on the ground. And the last thing is to control it so it's only on when you need it. So follow the energy code and add controls to it. So I don't know how much time we have, Nate, for questions, if any right now, but I'm happy to stick around after the meeting or any time in the future to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Quick before I move on? No? Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Cindy, oh, I'm sorry.
Cindy?
What is night sky heritage? You just mean,
It means that until the invention of electric light, every generation before that period of time, there was no interference with seeing every star that's up there. That's essentially what it means, is we've lost a huge percentage of the stars we can see at night. And if you've ever had the opportunity, you should really take the opportunity to come out to the reserve, which is going to be darker than Viroqua, or go to places that, like in Utah, where they still really have pristine skies in places in Utah. And it's quite overwhelming, honestly, to see that many stars. One more thing I'll add if I can. I failed to mention earlier that on Rock Avenue, we've installed 3 sample fixtures. And so if you take the chance to go look at those, they're all at 2200 Kelvin. So they're at the color temperature that I'm asking you to consider. There are 3 different types, 2 different manufacturers. I've been talking to Sarah and to the engineer on the Center Street project about looking at using the 2200K there as well. So hopefully that might happen as well, but that'll have a huge impact on how much sky glow Viroqua contributes to the problem. So.
thank you.
Thank you.
Just briefly, one other thing is that on the first Monday of each month at 9 o'clock in the morning, but it's also available on podcast. Our organization does a radio show on WDRT called Kickapoo, excuse me, it's Kickapoo Nightlife. And I welcome you to listen into the shows. In the July show, Scott is going to be presenting information on more technology that might be of interest to you. And we'll be asking him some riveting questions that I think you may be appreciative in terms of gaining more information on this important topic. So thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. With that, we'll move on to item number 6, which is the appointment of Marlene Blatz to the library board to replace Kathy Hansen for a term expiring 4/30 of 2026. Marlene is here, so if anybody has any questions for her, I think she'd be happy to.
The button is on. Okay.
I-
Good evening. My name is Marlene Blatz. My husband Brian and I have lived in Viroqua for almost 5 years now. And prior to that, we were in the rural area near Avalanche. And so we've been here in total about 30 years. And I look forward to serving the community on the library board.
You might tell them what you used to do
Oh,
before you retire.
I'm now a retired teacher from Viroqua Schools. Mhm.
Thank you.
I thought she would be a good library board member
Yes.
because of her experience with the kids, and I knew she had interest in reading and books, and
Yes, very much so. Libraries have always been a big part of our lives.
thank you for
Awesome.
agreeing.
So we're looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion. We appoint Marlene Blatz to the library board to replace Kathy Hansen for a term expiring 4/30/26.
Steve, I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, welcome. Thank you. Item number 7 is appointment of Mike Kalinowski to the library board to replace Terry O'Connor for a term expiring 4/30/2027. And Mike is here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Kalinowski. My wife and I, Pam is her name. Maybe some of you know her. People knew her far better than they knew me for the first few years we were here. But we've been here about 18 years now. We're both big library fans. I've used libraries all my life. And I would be glad to serve on the library board. Look forward to it.
Thanks, Mike. So with that, we are also looking for a motion.
JJ, I'll make a motion to approve Mike Kalinowski to the library board to replace Terry O'Connor for a term expiring April 30, 2027.
This is Emma, and I'll second that motion.
Got a motion and seconds. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, welcome. Awesome, Mike. Thank you. All right, item number 8 is operator license approvals.
Okay, I have a listing that went out in the packet and they were all for Walmart. And so there were several there. They all went through the background check. These didn't go to public safety, but we're trying to get all of these done before the end of the month for the new term. So we're just looking for approval on these to, like I said, it didn't go to public safety, but looking for your approval, but they did pass all their background checks.
Does AJ make a
John.
motion to approve the operator licenses listed in the packet?
I'll second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now, if the council will allow, I'm going to make a shift in the agenda. I'm actually going to move item number 17, which is a possible closed session, up, just for the simple fact that one of the individuals that we'd like to speak before we would go into closed session is here, and I'd like to respect his time, get him in and out of here. So then after he speaks, then we're going to move it back down and not enter into it so the public doesn't have to leave and come back. So it's going to be a little unconventional for a minute if the council will allow that. And with that, I'll read item 17, which is possible closed session per Wisconsin statute 1985 1E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. And this is review and approval of a development agreement with Felton Properties for commercial property development on the Hanson Farm property. So with that, I don't know if Nate want to start or Spanky, but
Sure. Yeah.
We'll give you an
it's-
opportunity to
Think
come
you
up
want
and
to
talk.
come into the microphone. So we had talked about an MOU at the previous council meeting that was approved to move forward to the development agreement phase. On the agenda for later night, I will show a development agreement and sort of walk through that, which essentially is, for the most part, the exact same language we reviewed before in terms of the deal for the sale of land, for the amount of money, the 3.8 acres on the Hanson Farm property, et cetera, et cetera. So I can give more detail into that, but do you want to start off in any other way while I bring up some of those materials for the council to look at?
Sure. Just briefly, we've been working on this project. We did have a hitch come along with the DOT. It was under our understanding when we purchased this, we meaning VDA, that we would have control of the ingress and egress off of the street because it was in the city limits. But I just spoke to Sarah on it, and I think Nate and I have talked about it, and it sounds like that's Sarah spoke to Joe Rux up to District 5, and it looks like it's a hard no on being able to keep any one of the driveways for the Little House or Connie Lewison's driveway. So anything we do has got to come off of the new road coming from Walmart over to Chicago Avenue. So Kurt and I were brought aware of this probably a week ago. Kurt's been working on revamping a plan. So all of a sudden it changes. So my concerns are, we have, the project that I was wanting to do, we're just talking to Sarah about the berm, they were going to get rid of that berm a few times. I wanted to keep it because the pine trees are on the berm, and I wanted to keep that as part of the whole thing I wanted to do. If we need a frontage road across the front of that, then all of a sudden that's not in play anymore. And, unfortunately, it doesn't sound like we're going to be able to negotiate anything with DOT on this. I haven't spoke to Joe, but just in talking to Sarah, it sounds like that's the case, right? So I think we need to just talk about, if we have to get rid of the trees and we have to get rid of the barn and we have to rethink this whole thing, I don't want to go ahead and buy this and then have to put that on me. So, and I apologize. I mean, I was a big proponent to keep that stuff, or it'd probably be gone already. So sorry. But I don't know, it's Kurt's trying to revamp a plan that maybe works. I did talk to Bill and Tammy the other day. I caught them both down to Quick Stop. The Culvers access is a possibility, and they would be very open to talking and working with us. I mean, but then again, if you remember, like with traffic stacking into Culvers, and if you even think back like to COVID, people were out in the Highway 14, and do they need more traffic issues there? I don't know. And even after talking to Bill, I was like, he's like, you know, is that a good idea? And I'm like, I don't know, you know, I don't know if that's a good idea. So just trying to be realistic about it. So that's kind of, I wanted to discuss that. I just wanted to kind of throw it out there. I'm not trying to throw a wrench in this, but we have no road, we have no way in and out of there anymore, other than that new road that is yet to be built. I guess my thing is I'm still interested in doing a project there. I just don't know what it looks like. I just think it has to be a buildable site. And what does that mean? I don't even know right now. I just know that, you know, it looks different than it did a couple weeks ago. Unless something changes with DOT. And again, I think that's done, right?
Yeah, I mean, Sarah and I have had.
Was that a good lead in?
What's that?
Was that a good lead in?
That was a great lead in. You know, in my conversation with Sarah, and by all means, feel free to rush up if Spanky or I are singing a different tune, but I think that's fairly accurate based on the conversations I've had. Correct? Here she comes. Here she comes. Here she comes.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the nuclear option, try to pull politicians in, but there was like no wavering on this. So I did push back because typically in our section of road, it's our call. That's our connecting highway limits. But they said because of the development and the creation of a subdivision and the new intersection, they will catch us no matter what. It's basically the gist of it. We talked about like working around, can we do a CSM on this side and this, and there, he was just like, this is not going to change. And he deals with this kind of thing all the time. He gets a lot of pressure and he knows when there's not a lot of wiggle room. Like I said, there's always trying, but it's going to be a trick. He says it's a statutory requirement that it's a state law that dictates how this is going to be laid out. And our connecting highway authority just basically disappears in this scenario.
Does it change and allow access until that new roadway is in place?
I know. Well, there's roads there. There's driveways. There's
Right.
2 driveways there.
So how long wasn't Connie allowed to use his driveway?
It's not that he wasn't, it's that we're changing the use of the land.
Okay.
And by subdivision, so he actually, no one asked him. Because it would never cross my mind that it never crossed the engineer's mind that we would have no authority here. But when it got submitted to become a subdivision plat, he picked it up because they go through him and say, well, look at this. And he's like, whoop. And he was actually going to reject the whole plat. And we said, well, can we just have some sort of amendment? Because like, that's why you have that like dotted line along the bottom where we could just ask for changes instead of just right out rejecting it. Again, there's always this, like, I've had some success calling the right people, but it's usually when the situation is a little bit gray. I mean, the way that this was presented, there was just no gray. It was black and white to him. And again, he literally just does this for the DOT, like access areas and things like that. So he knows his stuff.
We worked with him on the Dodge store. We worked with him on the DMV.
Yeah.
Parts store.
You've been able to get him to maneuver a little bit.
Not very much. I got to keep one, you know, and there used to be, if you remember, parts store or the credit, there was 2 driveways in the credit union. Then we had, I mean, there was a driveway for every single thing of that. Now it's pretty consolidated now. There's not much left there. So, but basically I wanted to bring the point up because I still think I still think we could do something there, and I think we could do something cooler. I'm just not sure what it is, and I'm still interested in doing the project. But we just need to come up with a plan that makes sense, and unfortunately, you know, I don't know what that plan is yet, but we'll figure it out.
Why did we have to lose the barn?
Because there's no way to it unless you build like the driveway that goes in there right now. They're saying we can no longer use the drive, like where you pulled into Connie Lewison's house there. That driveway's gone, and the driveway that goes into the little house down toward Culver's, they're also saying that driveway's going to be gone. So technically, right now, there's no way to access that property per se. But you know, they just, once they get a chance to close these driveways, something like this comes up, like Sarah said, here's a CSM, and then they get a hold of that, and it's like, no, this ain't it. Just gives them the opportunity to fix a problem maybe they've seen for years and years that they needed to address. And the same thing happened when we did all that on the north side up there. Everybody had their own little driveway, and it was great. And now there's, if you want to go to the parts store, you want to go to the DMV, the truck center, the Dodge store, you go in that driveway there, and that's how you get there. So, anyway, so if you take the berm off and you take the trees out, you eliminate the berm, then you can put the frontage road in front of there, and then, it's like you could lift the barn, you got to redo the walls and everything anyway, and then you could set it back up there 3 or 4 foot higher, I suppose. It's a different project. Huh?
That it changed.
Well, it
What
changed,
you're
it changed.
thinking of.
It just got.
So I think, again, just to echo what you've kind of said, is when Spank and I talked about this, we thought it was really important that he come and speak to you about the concept plan that was shown 2 weeks ago. Is not necessarily what can be done anymore because of the changes to the. And I think what's important to note as well is that you just don't know what it looks like yet because you guys haven't had the time to work through the issue yet and come up with your next iteration of the concept.
Kurt and Matt at Beerbecker have been playing around with it, and he sent me a couple ideas here a few days ago, and he's like, well, maybe, but you got to take the commercial out of the, any commercial stuff that you were going to do on the side toward Culver's, just ain't no way to get there. So Kurt's like, this isn't going to work to have this here, so now you got to rethink the, either that or you got to build a road to it. And get it in there.
So essentially what it is it's a cascading impact on the entire property. And again, there just hasn't been enough time for you guys to really work through what it is. And so
I'd like to still look at it, and
right.
If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We're not out anything, no harm done, but I'm sure we can come up with something. I just want to let you guys know what was going on.
Thank you for that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So is it, this property, is it all one property? It's not split up into different commercial properties?
So yes, what we're working on right now is what's shown on Exhibit A. This is the CSM that just went through Plan Commission earlier tonight and will be coming forth to council. This is being queued up in anticipation, or just being prepared in anticipation that we do move forward with the development agreement, and therefore these properties would become one property.
Right, but if they weren't one property, would they then allow access to any part of the property?
And that's where Sarah was talking about, I wouldn't call it the gamesmanship, but trying to do it in such a way as not to trigger the DOT's jurisdiction on it. And there's no way.
Okay.
She said there's a time and a place for doing that sort of stuff, and they've shot down every.
So you think
attempt to
now
do
that we open this can of worms, you can't close it back up
Cat's
again?
out of the bag.
The only way you could do it is if we rejected the Walmart intersection altogether as a lit intersection. That would probably, right. That would be, I would refer to as the nuclear option, but I think we've gone down a path here where we've showed our hand, and rightfully so. There was no reason not to, but because they know what's coming, they're planning for it, and
That's a good question, though. If they sold that to 3 different people, then what, right? I don't know. That's a good question. Sounds like
an option.
We showed our hand and now we're trying to bluff. I don't know.
But I think it's important to note the whole reason you're here tonight is to say, like, there's some changes that might
Yeah,
be
I'm
coming.
just saying I'm
You're
still interested, and I think we can come up with
interested.
something.
It's worth going. I know that there's this group and other members of the community have a strong desire to see a farm-esque development happen there, which is what you were aiming for in your first iteration. And
Get
that's
me a
still
road.
your hope, right? Huh?
Get me a road,
Right.
Mr. Mayor.
Right. But I mean, I don't want people, when you leave, I don't want people to think that you're trying to change the project because you're trying to change it. You're trying
Right.
to- I mean,
No, and I can still, I haven't gave up on that.
right.
I just don't know what to do,
Right.
But
it's not, if it's not you, it's going to be the next person that is going to have to deal with the same issue.
Right.
Those things might not be able to exist because of something that's beyond all of our control. So I think it's just important.
Right. And if
that that
somebody
get
comes up with a
acknowledged.
plan that works with that, and like I told you before, I'd step away. I'd be fine with that. I don't have to, but I mean, I still want to do something, but
Right.
I'm also a realist, and it would be,
Right.
so let's see what we can come up with. And maybe we'll come up, and when I get something that's concrete, I'll come back.
Mhm.
but I don't want to waste your time until I do. We'll get something figured out.
Mhm.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, anything else, Nate?
Is there any, yeah,
No, I think I think it's probably a good stopping point unless anybody has any immediate questions for Spanky or anything regarding this topic. That's sort of like what we wanted to get to at the front end of this agenda. And then when we get back to the agenda item, we'll go through the development agreement again, make sure everybody's comfortable with that, and go into closed session when we need to further discuss, okay?
I shouldn't sign that development agreement until we have something solidified, right? I mean, because it says a certain thing, and then if I change it, I'm just asking you, Nate.
Yeah, no. So, and that's what I've been reiterating to the group through this point is that document that's part of Exhibit B is a concept plan. It's conceptual in nature. It's not intended for any of us to think that that is the final thing that has to be delivered. And certainly what is up next is the phase 2 of this development agreement that is the fully formed plan. Once you have time to figure out what that is, get your engineering done and all that sort of thing, he comes back to us for the phase 2. He's like, okay, I figured it out. This is what we're going to do now. And then we as a council have a back and forth with the developer Spanky and say, okay, yes, this, but what about that? And can we try to do this? What about a little bit more of that? Or we say, yep, that sounds great. Let's accept it. But there's a whole nother section of this coming. This again is just the land acquisition piece of it that sort of delivers us to that sort of win-win situation with the excess dollars to support infrastructure and so on and so forth. So,
I'll ask a question while you're
Yeah,
here.
but go ahead.
So will you know by the phase 2 of the or what is it, the development agreement, will you know for sure if you're actually in it?
In it
Or
meaning,
like you're gonna actually develop it, or is that like still kind of in the weeds thinking about it?
I've never been in this position before, and I've
Sure.
done 8 of these. So it's like over the last 30 years, but I've always known what I was going to build. So I really don't know, it's like, I'd really like to have a concise plan because I always have had. And I'd like to have it pretty well nailed down before I even bring it to you. And I think that makes sense for both of us. Because otherwise I'm just buying land on speculation, and I ain't into that. I mean, so I just need to have it make sense. And maybe it's a hybrid of what we've got. I guess it's, so I know you're saying we can sell you the land based on that you do something within a certain amount of time and that you approve that, but there's a lot of ifs in there. And I think that's what you're getting at, right? And I agree with you. If I was in your chair, I would be saying the same thing.
Basically, I don't want the city to lose out on possibly another opportunity. Like,
I agree.
I'm not saying they're out there, but like maybe there is. But I just didn't want to be.
So to answer your original question, Steve, about the development agreement, by phase 2 development agreement, when we go to sign that, Spanky will have the plan that this is what we're going to do. And that's when we talk about, okay,
right.
Let's talk about schedule, right? Like we have with all the other developers, what exactly are you going to do? Where are they going to go? Let's talk about, your plans exactly. And then we sign that agreement but that's not tonight. Right?
No,
that's in the future.
I was just
right. And that's when you're more locked into, I think you call it a concise or specific plan that you want to do out there. Right.
And I want to have a locked plan before I close on this deal. I just do. Because otherwise somebody else might just, if they got a good idea, they just will run with it. So, so that, if that makes sense, again, I'm not trying to, so all I'm doing is saying, let's slow this thing down and figure this street out and see if I come up with something that meets your approval.
Don't want to make too much light of it, but have you thought about a helicopter drive-through? Because it might be where we're at with it.
Helicopter. You should have a helicopter.
Thanks.
Well, I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Jeff.
I don't think, is there anything else that we want to talk about now? Otherwise, we'd probably go to table this agenda item till later in the meeting. So I don't know if we need a formal motion to table that, or can we no, we'll just pause this and we'll come back to it later. So thank you very much.
Thanks. I appreciate your time.
You bet. All right, hopping back up to item number 9 is discussion and possible, discussion and approval of financial assistance agreement for lead service line grant and resolution.
Too much stuff here. So this will be short and sweet, I hope. Sarah and I were made aware a short time ago about a pot of money that was available from lead service line grants from 2021 and 2022 that the state still had, and they were looking to help municipalities out that were trying to help their customers, but didn't necessarily qualify or couldn't meet requirements of the bigger grants. And so we were able to secure some funds to reimburse 7 eligible customers who had already replaced their lead service line, or excuse me, their water service lines between November 23 and February 25. So this financial assistance agreement and resolution was brought forward from the Public Works. The agreement is for $23,643. It is a loan, but it comes with a 100% principal forgiveness, or $23,643. So the net cost to the utility is $0. Even though it is $0, we still need to have all the legal agreements in place. So I am asking the council to approve this financial assistance agreement and the resolution. We do have our closing date set for June 25th. So I won't come back to you again and keep coming back to you. This is a done deal if the council approves this. Short and sweet. Are there any questions?
No questions? Thank you, Cheryl. We're looking for a motion then.
Make a motion, we approve the financial assistance agreement for lead service line grant and resolution.
And this is Crystal, I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? We'll do a roll call on this one.
Cindy,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Crystal,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Seth,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Todd,
Aye.
and Emma.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
We will
Cheryl
move.
and Sarah for all the work they did on this thing.
Yes.
Months.
Move on to item number 10, review and approval of the 2024 Compliance Maintenance Annual Report and Resolution.
I know it's your favorite time of year to hear all about the wastewater system, but yes, you get to do it again. I try to be more brief at this meeting, but I will say it is your responsibility to know what's going on with the wastewater system, and this is the moment where we give you all the information. Okay, so our compliance maintenance annual report is basically all things wastewater in the city. And it goes through every parameter basically that we monitor to make sure we're doing what we need to do and that our facility is properly sized. And so I won't go through all of it, but you can see that there were a couple months here where we didn't have influent data. We did have effluent flow rates, but we had our monitoring was down for that period of time. But you can see we're typically in that about 250,000 gallons per day is our sort of average daily flow. And that is well within our design capacity of the plant. So we're not exceeding the amount of waste that we're receiving. Our plant design is not insufficient. Talks about different things. I won't go through a lot of this in detail, but we receive septic tank waste and holding tank waste. We did have a little bit of leachate this year. We accepted it twice, but that was due to landfill having an emergency and needing us to accept it for them. So we basically don't take it on a regular basis, but we do in case they need it. We have this grade system, which is kind of counterintuitive, meaning if we get 0 points, we did a really good job. So that's why you say total points generated 0. That's what we want to see. And then we get grade A in that section. So the main parameters that we are regulated on are our BOD, which is a biochemical oxygen demand. It's basically our organic matter. And so we're looking at like what comes into the plant and making sure that we have no exceedances of our monthly limit. And again, we did well in that category. We had no violations. We did have a problem when we did our wet testing, which is our toxicity testing. And that was just because the sample was received late at the lab. So we retested and everything was fine, which is why we, again, have no points generated in that section. So we did well. Solids. So obviously when we discharge, we don't want the effluent to have a lot of solids. So we have a solids limit as well. And we did well and did not have any exceedances for our solids. Just as a brief note, you'll see in all of these effluent categories, we always have two sections. And that's because we have the section that's near Springville, and then that is our normal discharge point. But when we did the upgrades, we kept our old discharge point at the plant just in case the line got plugged or there was like massive flows that came through the system. We still want to be able to discharge properly. And again, we did well without generating any points in that section. Ammonia, this is the one I watch most carefully because it's the one that's hardest for us to adjust. So when something goes wrong here, it's like they always say, steering the cruise ship. It's not a quick turnaround. And so we're always watching carefully what's happening there. I will say Brock's done a great job working with our Greg Paul. He's an advisor that we have about trying to make sure we have as much buffering within the system. So that's been really effective for us. And again, no exceedances in that section. Phosphorus, we always talk about phosphorus. That was probably the main impetus for our wastewater treatment plant upgrade that we had about, oh boy, it would have been 7 years ago now. We've done quite well. We also have the projects that we've done, stream bank stabilization in the watershed, and those give us some extra capacity if we were to exceed our limit. And again, we have no exceedances, so 0 points. Biosolids, so what we've been talking about now is like the flow that comes in and the flow that goes out, but that's not the whole story. We also have biosolids, so everything that's taken out of the system and that we're dealing with. And so we do land apply our solids after they go through the anaerobic digester. We have about 46 acres that we use, and we always apply at about half of the rate that's allowed, which gives us extra capacity for later. They do a whole bunch of testing about heavy metals in there and making sure that it doesn't accumulate to a point that's damaging. And so we also do soil testing, and that's how they determine whether our biosolids can be applied and at what rate. And obviously we want to make sure that when we apply it, it's, not having high fecal coliforms or bacteriological contamination. And then we also want to make sure we're not attracting seagulls or other critters to the site. So when we do it, we either incorporate it into the land when we apply it or we inject it. And we have a biosolids capacity of over 180 days, which means we can apply in the spring and in the fall, although sometimes we don't do it in the spring because it's not cheap. So, all right. So again, we did well in that section. Plant staffing. So do we have adequate staff? We have one full-time wastewater treatment plant operator that is now certified for the whole plant. And then we also have a backup operator who's an operator in training. And we have a ton of information where we take care of all the maintenance activities in the plant, and it's tracked both mostly within a computer system, but some of it's on paper. So like, have you changed the oil or the filter, that kind of thing. And as I mentioned, Brock, which think this is one of those wins for Viroqua because we hired Brock. He was not an operator at all. He's worked here, oh gosh, I think it's 8 years now, and he worked his way through and gained that education. So I think that's something to be really proud of. And it's our plant, believe it or not, has a lot, we're advanced plant, and all of these subclasses they're required to have as a certified operator. Did well in that category. This one, Cheryl gets to come up for a while. You can hear someone else. Brief little while.
Okay, Sarah, let's see. Do I just do this? Or you have your mouse set up?
You know, I can probably scan for you if you
Okay.
like. Scroll for you.
Oh, it will move, so that's even better.
Yeah.
Okay, so the DNR also likes to make sure that the sewer utility is reviewing their revenues, expenses, and that we are managing our finances appropriately. So we do review our expenses and our revenues every year. Both Sarah and I do that, as well as that is done as part of our audit. And we do, obviously, are audited every year. We are required to have a separate account to take care of our replacement funds, or excuse me, to take care of the replacements if anything major goes down at the treatment plant. Currently, we do need to have a little over $2 million. Right now, though, we have $893,833.23. That is slowly accumulating. We are required to do a $90,400 payment annually. That is set for us. We can't go up or down at the moment. And I did contribute another $47,700 in interest in 2024. So that does bring our balance this year so far, excuse me, as of the end of December to $1,032,000. The required balance that we have right now is $891,915. So we have adequately funded that replacement account. Even though we look like we have more, we still have to repay that $90,400 every year. And part of that too is they like to make sure that we are reviewing our replacement account to ensure that we adjust for inflation and have adequate money. So Sarah and I will be reviewing that again this year.
And I will say that we should recognize Cheryl for all she does, but she has also done an amazing job at getting interest revenue. I don't even think it's been an awesome time to get our money that we've had in reserves, and you'd be surprised how much she's, by putting things in the right account and working with the banks, has really helped us out. Okay, so they say future planning, you know, what we're doing future planning wise. Obviously, we have a capital improvement plan that we're working on. And so I threw some of the ones that are pretty obvious in here that we need to do. So some of them are in the future, like Washington sewer replacement and South Washington sewer lining. But we also have our sewer lining projects that we do about $50,000 worth every year. Our J Street lift station, I would say that one we've been holding off to try to make sure we're not building bigger than necessary, but we're certainly getting to a point where this one needs to be replaced just for age. It's like our workhorse lift station. That one works harder than any of the other now 6 lift stations, which I'm really excited to say. Yeah. And then I was able to take a lot of these off the list because we did them this last couple of years. It still says 7 here, lift stations. That's because when in 2024, we hadn't gotten rid of the fairgrounds one yet, right? We just did that a couple of weeks ago. Which again, a big win because we lost less pumping, less mechanicals, always a big win. So we also look at our electricity usage, which obviously fluctuates throughout the year. We have worked with Focus on Energy and then done internal audits to the system, which hasn't changed a lot in the last 5 years. And we have some of the key things like a SCADA system, submersible pumps and variable frequency drives. And we just this goes through those energy consumptions and things that we've done both at the plant and in the collection system. Some of our key things is like anaerobic digestion. We use our anaerobic digester and we actually use some of the methane that's generated to create heat for the anaerobic digestion process because it needs to be hot, like 90 degrees. And these are just other things that the DNR identifies as components that you can use to increase your energy efficiency. And some of them just don't apply depending on what kind of treatment process you have. We use gravity throughout our plant pretty much exclusively, except for in our biological treatment system where we recirculate. And that's basically it for that section. We are continually doing our CMOM program, so it's our capacity management, operation, and maintenance. We update that all on an annual basis. And it talks about all of our ordinances being in place and procedures being in place. I will say, like I say, every year, I think we are doing a good job of making sure we have all of those things that we need. One of the things that other communities are doing is putting more pressure on the private lateral connections because a homeowner owns from the building right up to the sewer main, not like in the water where it's up to the curb stop. And so what's happening in those, we televise our system, but it's, a lot of pipe in the ground. We've just been encouraging people to do things. They just naturally have collapses and things like that. But it might be something to look at in the future because we still have a tremendous amount of inflow that comes in during rain events. And this is like, what do we do? We're cleaning, which is our jetting, which also does some root removal. We're monitoring our flows, doing smoke testing. You get that announcement depending on where you live. We're smoke testing. Don't panic if you see smoke. Fill your vents with water to make sure your traps don't allow that smoke to come in. There was a lot of rain last year, 42 inches in 2024, which is high. And our peaking factor, I will say this is always one to look at, is when it's our peak month is 3 times our annual average flow rate, but our peaking hourly rate is 11.7. That's huge. And this is the one that the more we address, the less we have to worry about making our system bigger for like just those 5 times a year where we might get that much rain. And that's always my big I&I speech, right? Inflow and infiltration. If it's not supposed to be in the sewer system, we don't want to take it on. And I will say, yay, no sanitary sewer overflows, which is all interrelated to that I&I. It's like we get those crazy rain events where we just can't take all that's coming into the system. And sometimes we have to pump at a lift station so that people's basements don't back up. That has not happened in the last couple of years. So that's hopefully not changing in the future. All right, so I am happy to go in more detail anywhere, but I know this is long and not always everybody's most favorite thing, but we are looking pretty good. We have a straight A's this year and continue to try to do well. But as I said, if there's anything that you want to talk about, there's that resolution that specifically just says that you did all listen to me and hear what I had to say about the wastewater plants and that we're putting this forward as our annual maintenance report.
I just had one question.
Go ahead.
If somebody needed to look at this report for more detail, is it available somewhere?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think we have a link to it on our website, but we certainly can. We can put it, it would probably be put under the sewer page.
Yeah, I think the past ones are on there currently, and I think once this one.
Well, the CCR is on the website, which is the water quality side, but we don't always put this one on.
I thought I put it on there, but you might be right.
Maybe.
There's a lot of public works pages. It might be in there somewhere. There's a lot of content out there.
More content, yeah. Absolutely.
Good. Cindy.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention 2 things. You mentioned the operator at Brock, and I don't know if you all know, there is another one in training because it takes like 6 years to get to that point. So it's important that we have somebody else coming up. That, and then everybody knows about the stormwater and why she's talking about how much rain there is and what the problem is with that. You might going to go into how it's getting into rainwater. It's not supposed to be getting into the sewer.
Yeah, but once it gets there, we have to treat it like sewer, and that's the challenge.
And it gets there by people having their tell them the various
Yeah,
thing. And I think the
So
public
it
isn't
can-
aware really.
Right. It can infiltrate, through pipes. It can be like downspouts that are connected to the sewer system. Most of those kinds of things we've caught because that's with smoke testing. You'll see the smoke coming out of someone's roof drain and uh-oh. But then we also think that a lot of our problem is leaky basements because your floor drain is connected to the sewer system by code. And that's a big problem around here. So we are continually searching for those things. We come up with things every once in a while. Our continual work on our sewer projects, like replacing the old clay tile that we still have, that's a big one as well. And our sewer lining. So in cases where the road itself is in good shape, we know we're not going to replace the water main because it's newer, but we know that the sewer is not in good shape and the integrity is still there. We can line the sewers. But yeah, this is our biggest battle for sure. And it's been our biggest battle for decades. So, yeah.
I just think it's one of the things that the public doesn't really understand.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
We do clear water inspections when we do other inspections like meter changeouts, but it's hard to catch all that stuff.
Thank you to Cheryl and Sarah for all your hard work.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you. Anything else? Now we're looking for approval.
I'll make a motion, we approve the 2024 Compliance Maintenance Annual Report and Resolution.
Say Jill, second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Item number 11, review and approval of change order number 1 for 2024 sewer project.
Not that one. I figured I'd use the council packet since it's all nicely together, Lori. Okay, change order. This change order worked out well. Sometimes they don't, right? But this one did. So essentially, we ended up not doing everything for the stormwater changes that we anticipated for the sewer project. So we saved money by not doing the stormwater changes or having to make an extensions. That was like in that Sands Road area where we were able to work with the property owner and be able to get an easement. But at the same time, we also spent more money in stormwater management. One thing that happened was the consultant had it as an elliptical shaped pipe, or excuse me, a round pipe, but it was an elliptical, like oval shaped pipe. That caused some concern, and that would be Veerbecker, but they didn't even ask me. They just took care of the problem. I will say that doesn't happen every day. They knew it was their mistake and they just took care of it. So that's not necessarily in here, but it is some of the changes, like there'll be like different kinds of end walls and things like that. The other thing that we dealt with was when we crossed Chicago Avenue, there's like it's a confluence of a bunch of different flows. And when we changed the pipe, we put it a little bit deeper in anticipation of the Hanson development. And when we did that, it kind of got real close to the Darylyn power pole, which obviously they don't like. And so we went about sort of trying to make a way that we wouldn't have to worry about erosion so much. So that's why you see that the sheet pile wall, that was us trying to like extend part of it and move it around a little bit so that we wouldn't have a problem there because they do own an easement. So long story short, it only comes out to 2,260, which is great, but there was a lot of adds and subtractions in that contract change order.
Great. Questions? Now we're looking for a motion.
This is Crystal, and I would move approval of the change order number 1 for the 2024 sewer project in the amount of $2,260.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
John,
Aye.
Crystal,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Seth,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Todd,
Aye.
Emma,
Aye.
and Cindy.
Aye.
All right. We'll move on to item number 12 now is review and approval of pay request number 7 for 2024 sewer project.
Okay, so this is that same project and also includes the change order we just talked about. I would say this is probably the second last pay request. They are more or less done the whole project. You can see them doing some sort of finishing touches at the fairground. They're putting that fence back. I made a point of ensuring that it was better than it was before. There were certainly sections that weren't great, so we want to make sure we put it up properly for them. But yeah, we're more or less done with this project except for some erosion and what am I trying to say? There's a word I've lost. But in any way, all the soil work and this and restoration, that's the word I'm looking for. Okay, this total pay request for this is $223,587. There wasn't anything particularly strange except for the fact that we did have more material that we took out in our trenches that we put granular backfill back in. And a lot of that came under the Sands Road area. We were just finding like rubble, like old concrete and things that we couldn't leave in the ground and then had to be removed.
Yeah, thanks.
I think that, and so you can see it here, it ended up, you know, it's about a $6,000 change, but we figure we can recoup that in some of the asphalt costs that we never ended up using. And that's really it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer, but.
Thanks, Sarah. Any questions? Now we're looking for a motion to approve pay request number 7.
Well, this is Crystal, and I'd move approval of pay request number 7 for the 2024 sewer project in the amount of $223,587.65.
AJ, I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Crystal,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Seth,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Todd,
Aye.
Emma,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
and John.
Aye.
All right, item number 13, review and approval of pay request number 1 for WPA Bathhouse Welcome Center project.
Mayor, as long as Sarah's got control of the screen, do you want to skip to 14?
I'd love to. Let's move on down to number 14, which is approval of construction contract with Badger Environmental for landfill gas remediation project.
Okay, Mike, are you still there? I didn't have my phone with you to give you a text.
I am here.
Awesome. All right. So, an update of where we are at with the landfill. So we met with the DOT. It's a D, it's something, right? DNR today to discuss the letter we received and the timelines. And then we did submit our work plan that was due on the 6th. And so they don't make a formal approval of the plan, surprisingly, even though we were required to submit it, but they did give us the green light to proceed how we wanted, and to which was trying to reinstall or restore the passive gas system, and to do it in a phased approach as opposed to trying to do the whole 1,000 feet. So that was a win. I think it went well. They asked some questions. Mike particularly had some good answers for them. And it seems like we're on a path. They are going to be somewhat flexible about our implementation deadline, which was June 30th, because it is very well. We're trying to clarify, what does implementation mean? And they want the construction completed by that implementation date, or at least for the first phase. So meaning we're going to move quickly still, but it's not acceptable to just have the contract. We need to be, finishing that first phase. So we are still probably fine with meeting our next council meeting before we give the whole contract and okay. There's still things we're working through with Badger, making sure the prices are where we want them to be, but with Badger Environmental. But one thing that Mike and I thought would be pertinent is that what seems to be hanging out there in terms of holding us back from getting the work done is getting the perforated pipe. There's at least a 2-week lead time. And so that's what I think we should look at approving today rather than the entire contract. And getting the pipe, meaning that the city would order the pipe rather than Badger. So that does a couple things. One, it saves we're tax exempt. It also should save their overhead that they put on everything, right? And that's just what every contractor does. But it also allows us to order the pipe prior to approving their contract. And so we're going to be delayed by it anyway. I think this will expedite it so that they're not waiting for the pipe, and then we're not expecting Badger without a contract to buy $25,000 worth of pipe. So that's what I'm looking for today. But we do have Mike here, and he is always really awesome at asking or answering questions. And so I know, like, now you've had some time to sit with this for a while. If you have some questions, now would be a good time.
What does this perforated pipe cost?
Yeah, so the estimate that we put together with some contingency is basically 25,000. In comparison to the $500,000 and whatnot we've been talking about, it's a pretty small part of the cost, but it will be what's sort of holding us up.
I have a question. I guess we're remediating a problem that we have, but we're putting the same system in. Is there a chance that this 2 years down the road will also fail?
Well, that part of the reason why we want to do the first bit is to see how well it works. But I'm going to let Mike talk a little bit about the differences between what he's proposing and what was there.
Okay.
Go for it, Mike.
So back in the 90s, when the first system was put in, I would believe that it was probably a dirty sand that was used. That was the typical material that was used. They basically, DNR required that you use a sand to convey the gases. And when I say a dirty sand, something you would have in your kid's sandbox. It's sandy, but it might have a little silt in it. It's not really washed, and it has shown over time that it just is. It either starts out poor or it starts to, as soil water migrates through the soil above it, it starts silting up, and then it doesn't function like it's supposed to. What we are proposing to install is a trench with 3/4 inch wash stone, which will hold up, have a much longer lifespan. Now, is it gonna someday in the future get plugged up? Sure, anything. When is the future? 100 years from now? When is the waste gonna stop generating gas? I think it's gonna hold up long enough that the material, the waste around it, will have stopped generating gas by that time.
Thank you.
So that's the biggest difference, is for a fancy term, the porosity of the material that we're putting the pipe in.
Okay. And then second question is, I think, I don't know if we were given options of how to remediate the problem, but is this the cheapest, most affordable way to do that? I'm assuming, but we didn't ask the question 2 weeks ago.
So I had provided Sarah with a couple options. One is just putting, I call them whirly-birds, something you would see on the top of someone's house, just adding that onto the vent pipes that are out there. And that just, in like someone's attic, it just helps promote airflow. It provides a little vacuum, but not much. You can get those at Menards and they're relatively cheap. Will it work? No. Another option is to get small blowers and install them on the existing vent pipes, and the ones that are on the market right now provide they'd be solar operated, but they provide such a small vacuum on the existing pipes. If the sand isn't allowing the gas to flow through it, again, the vacuum would be so low, it would not solve the problem. So I kind of gave her, here's a 20,000, here's 100,000, and then you get into what I'm proposing. I know it's more expensive, and we have been working with the contractor, and like Sarah said, with the city procuring the pipe, that not only helps with lead time, but it also helps with cost. So we are trying to figure out the lowest, most effective solution to the problem. So there are cheaper options. I don't think they're going to work. So you're just throwing money away.
I would say you should also mention that there are more expensive options.
Yes. And the DNR brought those up. They wanted to make sure that we had a contingency that if this didn't work, that we had already thought the next step of going to an active system, which this system will allow you to go to an active system, which will include putting a industrial, I call it industrial, but it's basically what it is, an industrial blower. And it's opposite what it's going to do. It's going to put a vacuum on the landfill and pull the gas out of the landfill versus letting it just passively vent. But that requires getting the blower, maintenance, operation, and it is something that can be done in the future, but does not need to be done at this time. And that's also why we're doing the 300 feet kind of test, is to see what our worst problem is in one location, do this in that location. If it solves it there, it should work on the rest of the area that we're going to implement it. So that was kind of the thought behind doing it in 2 stages, is figure out what works up front and then proceed the rest of the way. The whole 1,000-foot versus doing 1,000 feet and finding out it doesn't work and we got to go, change things. So start small and then go from there.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, this is not a guarantee. This is not an exact science. Made it very clear with the DNR, well, hopefully clear, that we don't know what we're going to find when we dig into it. If we find, because they were asking, how deep are you going? Do you know you're going deep enough? The answer is, I don't know, until we dig a hole and I see what's in the ground. So that we kind of got a quote for 5 feet into the waste and 10 feet into the waste to get a a range. So when we get out there, we don't have a number that's for 5 feet, and then we have to be at 10 feet. And suddenly we're back in front of you asking for more money.
Thank you.
I just have one, and it's a comment. I want to say that I think it's a good idea to go ahead and order the perforated pipe by the city, because that demonstrates our willingness to comply to the DNR.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we buying the full 1,000 feet or are we buying 300 feet?
We're probably buying 400 feet. Just because it's not an exact pipe will be cut and things like that. So plus all the fittings and things like that. So your $25,000 estimate was for all of it, correct, Mike?
Correct.
Yeah. When I spoke with the supplier today, they said they could bring it in 2 different shipments. We end up paying about $900 more in total. So that's something that we need to work through. But I asked about a restocking fee, which they said they were unsure, but they are perforating it. And so I'm not feeling super confident about the restocking fee being minimal or acceptable.
Sorry, one more question. So are we for sure, I guess he said, we're gonna do a section and then if it works, we're gonna continue to do,
Mhm.
so that's the plan. And we're gonna do the whole 1,000 feet? Or is it,
Provided that, yes, the goal is to do all of it because something does need to happen on more than one location. So along the east side and along the north side.
okay.
Are we going to see the actual construction contract that we're
So we're
approving
not
tonight?
approving that yet, just because we don't have it yet.
Okay.
Yeah. We have proposals from Badger, but we're still working through some of those costs, and trying to understand what's makes it more expensive for them. Right. And then I'm trying to figure out like if we can make sense of it, like this pipe, for example. Well, they were worried about getting it in time and then they were going to perforate it themselves. And it's like, well, how about we do this instead? So we're trying to work through, because the one nice thing about not being publicly bid is we do have, and not having like, all restrictions of a grant funding is that we can do things like purchase pipe and nobody really, we're doing it within the parameters of the law.
So you're looking for just a motion to approve up to what?
25,000.
25,000 for pipe.
This is Seth. I make a motion that we approve the purchase of 400 feet of perforated pipe with to not exceed the dollar amount of
25,000 for the 1,000 feet.
So the 25,000 would give us the entirety of the
Oh,
pipe. Yeah.
Okay.
That way she won't have to come back if we
Yeah.
want to order the.
Correct. Because if it's working and we see it working really well right away, I think we'll just keep moving. Depends. We want to get this resolved sooner than later.
So I will amend my motion to approve spending $25,000 on perforated pipe to move forward with the landfill gas remediation project.
This is John, I'll second.
Got a motion, a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Steve,
Aye.
Seth,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Todd,
Aye.
Emma,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and Crystal.
Aye.
All right. Now we'll go back to item 13, which is review and approval of pay request number 1 for the WPA Bathhouse Welcome Center project.
So this would have been included in your council packet. This is pay request 1, which at this point is a number of materials that have been purchased and stored. If you'll remember when we were moving forward and trying to get the contract signed, there was a concern by the contractor of trying to get these materials purchased before prices went up and so on and so forth. Even though we were locked on it, we were trying to work with our contractor and making that happen. So they have stated that they've purchased a number of items. What I will note is that we are still sort of trying to get into a rhythm here with our contractor on how to work with the architect and also how to work with our third-party inspector. And so we have this pay request and I would encourage you to pre-approve it, but do know at this time that the third-party inspector has not received what he needs to receive in order to sort of verify and recommend that we make this pay request happen. And essentially what that is pictures and locations of where the stored items are, what materials have been purchased and are currently being stored, so that next time we receive a pay request, he knows he can verify that these are new items that have been purchased and stored and not the same items that we already have on hand. So that's pretty typical. That's what they've done with the fire station project. And simply, we're at this point because our contractor was on a vacation to the Boundary Waters and just wasn't able to keep up with communications, rightfully so. Not exactly the easiest place to take a phone call from. So I do think everything is moving forward nicely. I just simply think that we're playing a little bit of catch up here with getting into the rhythm of how the pay requests need to work. So again, I would recommend approval of the pay request contingent on sign off and recommendation by our third party inspector.
Thanks, Nate. Questions? Not, I think we're looking for a motion.
This is Crystal, and I would move approval of the pay request number 1 for the WPA Bathhouse Welcome Center project in the amount of $81,195.49, and that's contingent upon review by a third party, our third party.
Todd will second it.
We got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Seth,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Todd,
Aye.
Emma,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Crystal,
Aye.
and Steve.
Aye.
All right, item number 15, review and approval of pay request number 10 for the fire station project.
A copy of this was also included as part of your packet. The one I have on screen now does include the sign off by a third-party inspector. I do see Chief Burrows has come up to the podium, so if you want to just give him a run through of where we're at this time.
Well, pay request number 10, so we're getting closer. That it did go through Levi and myself for review to make sure everything looks good. Nothing popped out to anything of surprise. Yeah, I guess I don't really have anything super interesting to bring forward to you.
Would you like to
if have
just give him a
questions.
current state of where things, maybe what's new on the building since the last pay request?
Yeah, so a lot of HVAC, sprinkler systems in, a lot of flooring, working through, some final details on electric and plumbing. Cabinets are going in, a lot of the ceiling grid is in. We actually have, permanent lighting in there now. The retention pond, I believe, is finished, and they're working on final grades and getting that ready in hopes of, I believe in a couple, 2-3 weeks, they may put down the first layer of blacktop. We will have a change order that we'll bring to you hopefully by the end of the month for the last council meeting in June to kind of review any changes and things that have happened, in the last couple months, I suppose, since we talked last on that. But things are tracking well. No real big issues, knock on wood, aside from that hour one of the project. So that's good. But yeah, I mean, it's moving forward. They're telling me currently to kind of plan on the first part of August of potentially moving in. So it's a little behind, but not bad. So yeah, I guess unless you have any questions, if you get a chance, they were going to leave the lights on the sign and the parking lot lights to see how it looks, and the electrician wants to look it over in the morning. So wait till dark and drive by and tell me what you think. So, but yeah, other than that, let me know if you have any questions, I guess.
Thanks, Chief. Are there any questions? Now we're looking for a motion.
This is Crystal, and I would move that we approve the pay request number 10 for the fire station project in the amount of 600, thank you, and 94,500, $694,503.22.
This is AJ, I'll second.
This is John, I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion, a second. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Andrew,
Aye.
Todd, Emma,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Crystal,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
and Seth.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. All right, item number 16, review and approval of amendment to state and local agreement for the community safe room.
Oh, I got sideways here. We had spoken about this particular topic at I think it was maybe 2 meetings ago. For this very room that we're sitting in, we received a grant partially through FEMA, partially through Wisconsin Emergency Management, that essentially paid for 87.5% of eligible costs for constructing this to a safe room standard. We had identified about 4 to 5 months ago that we had always needed to conduct a peer review to make sure that the way that our architects, ADCI, had designed and built this did conform to P361 standards. Again, our understanding was that somebody else from ADCI could perform that peer review, and somebody had recently done one, so we thought we were in the clear. Come to find out, it's a third-party peer review. And so it was a mistake. We had recently signed a contract with Veerbecker to provide that third-party service, and they had to work with another structural engineer in partnership to get that done. The peer review has been completed. It has been submitted to WEM, Wisconsin Emergency Management, and they have accepted it. So that's all good. We actually pre-approved that our approach to that would work before we went and spent the money. So that's all solid. And the better news is that Wisconsin Emergency Management did go to bat for us and essentially try to get additional monies obligated to the project, which they were successful in doing so. So essentially what they're asking us to do in order to close out the project and receive our additional funds is to sign this amendment to the state and local government agreement that we signed way back when, I think it was probably in 21 or 22, when we first took the grant. So at this point, the amount of total grant increased by $13,000. Okay. Now, I don't think we'll necessarily get all of that money. I think we'll get 87.5% of that, or 87.5% of the additional cost that was to the project. So we may, on the end of the day, the total cost for it, I think we're a little over $11,000, and we'll be on the hook for about $1 million, is what my calculation is right now. So not perfect situation, but certainly we're very thankful to Wisconsin Emergency Management and FEMA for obligating the additional funds. So essentially what I'm looking for here today is just approval of the amendment so that we can get the sign submitted and do our final reimbursement on the grant.
Cindy, I make a motion, we approve the amendment to the state and local agreement for community safe room.
CJ, I'll second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any other questions? Do a roll call, please.
Todd,
Aye.
Emma,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Crystal,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Seth,
Aye.
and Andrew.
Aye.
All right. Item number 17, and I guess a question for Nate based on the conversation here. I don't think we have anything to review or approve based on Spanky's essentially alluded to the fact he didn't want to move forward
No,
until he
yeah,
had
we
it.
should go into closed session.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
no, we absolutely should go into closed
Okay.
session. And I don't know if you want to take a break before that point.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. We'll take a quick 5-minute break here. No, that's all right. Yes, but after the break, we're gonna move into closed session. So everybody that's here now would be a fine time to head out. All right, everybody. We are back and we're going to do item number 17, which I will read for a second time. Possible closed session per Wisconsin statutes 1985 1E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. And this is in regards to review and approval of development agreement with the Felton Properties for commercial property development on the Hanson Farm property.
Make a motion, we go closed session.
Steve, I'll second.
Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Emma,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Crystal,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Seth,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
and Todd.
Aye.
All right. Yeah. Sure. All right, we got the doors open, the recording's back on, the folks from the waiting room are back, so we will reconvene an open session with possible action on items discussed during closed session.
This is Steve. I make a motion. We approve what was discussed in closed session.
Todd, I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Nate, do we need to say that it's approving the development agreement?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's
Do you
I
want
will
to amend
amend my
yours?
motion to say the development agreement.
I'll second that.
All right, we got a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call, please.
John,
Aye.
Crystal,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Seth,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Todd,
Aye.
Emma,
Aye.
and Cindy.
Aye.
Excuse me. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll move on to item 19, which is payment of the bills.
Cindy, I'll make a motion, we pay the bills.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions? We'll do a
The
roll
only thing
call.
I'll say in there that wasn't covered in finance was that those last bills to ADCI that were in there under City Hall, whatever it's called, capital expenditure, that's related to the peer review. So they had to respond to Veerbecker for a number of items that they wanted as follow-up. At this point, we knew we were getting reimbursed, so I said, yep, that's fair's fair. You're doing additional work on our behalf. And so if anybody's wondering where the ADCI bills came out of all of a sudden, that's what it's for. And I thought it was all very appropriate and necessary.
Thank you, Nate. Roll call.
Crystal,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Seth,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Todd,
Aye.
Emma,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
and John.
Aye.
All right, moving on to item 20, second period for public comment. We have nobody in the room with us here, and seeing nobody, looks like Nate is saying no. So we'll move to item 21, which is adjournment.
Just Todd will make a motion to adjourn.
Steve, I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Emma. Have a good night.
Holy Christ, did they just keep going?